How's it going, guys? Welcome to a slightly different episode of Motoring Mistakes. I'm currently on the hunt for a new project car in the UK for less than about £5,000. I'm making this video to go through some of the ideas that I've found, share them with you guys, get your opinions, see if there's any recommendations that you have, things that I should have thought about, and also perhaps encourage you to make some motoring mistakes of your own. So first of all, my criteria for a project car is that it must be fun. I want something that I can drive and enjoy. It doesn't need to be my daily, as I have the Range Rover for that. However, I would like it to be dailyable if I needed it to, as I am likely to have issues with that Range Rover anyway. Easy to work on and not so prone to rust. I would like to make sure that there's parts available for it and the parts are fairly affordable. So my first choice then is a 986 Porsche Boxster, preferably the Boxster S. A good Boxster S of that age, probably 2000, 2001, is around about £7,000 with a lower mileage, but I'm pretty sure I can get a Project One for less than £5,000. I would be willing to go for the 2.7. I would probably avoid the 2.5 litre as they are a bit older. Some good projects you can do with this. You can actually put the 3.4 litre engine, I think it's the 3.4 litre engine, from the 996 or 997 Carrera. I would like to avoid the Tiptronic, as I've heard some bad things about those, and I would much prefer to have a manual car for my fun project car, especially if I'm just going to be driving that for enjoyment, not necessarily for daily. But I could daily it if I wanted to. I've read that they're particularly easy to work on, even though the position of the engine is where it is. Supposedly all the serviceable items are quite easy. Parts availability, I think, okay, parts for a Porsche would be expensive, but it's quite an old car, and there'll be a load of donor cars about, a load of stuff on eBay, I'm sure. One of the best things about these is they don't seem to be prone to rusting. That for me is a big plus, and then I can just focus on the mechanicals.
The Boxster S is the 3.2 litre and that gives you about 250 horsepower. The acceleration on that from 0 to 60 is about 5.7 seconds. The 2.7 litre version has the 5-speed manual transmission rather than the 6-speed manual transmission, and that has a 0 to 60 of about 6.4 seconds. The 2.7 litre engine has around 217 horsepower, the 3.2 litre engine being around 250 horsepower.
The next car on my list is the Mazda MX5. Of course, it's the obvious choice. The main things here is the community that's there, the modifications that you can do to it, how easy they are to work on, turboing, engine swaps, all sorts of stuff that we can do. One of the main issues is rust on these things, so I've got to be careful not to buy a rusty one, which is why I've set my budget at about £5,000. I think you could buy a fairly solid one for £5,000 that you could modify, or you could buy one that's still quite solid but may need a bit of work, some mechanical issues, some paint work, that kind of thing, for less than £5,000. But you could really make a solid car out of that. They're great fun to drive. So there's lots of parts available for these, lots of stuff on eBay that you can get. One issue with these cars is, as standard, they are pretty slow. I did used to have one of these. I had a UK edition, not one of the imports. I drove it across Europe, had a great time in it. It wasn't particularly powerful, but on the road trip I was with other not so powerful MX5s as well, which made it great. However, with the things you can do with this, with the turbo kits and stuff like that, you can really make these quite fun. You can also put some good suspension on them and really enjoy these cars. They were surprisingly practical for what it was. It was a 2-seater small boot, but to be honest, we camped everywhere and I was able to fit a small tent in there and a couple of bags for each of us, and I had a great time in it. So again, maybe this is a bit of a nostalgic pick for me because I've had one in the past, but I would really quite enjoy having one of these again, and I think it would be a great one to learn to wrench on. However, the big concern of mine here is rust.
They came with a 1.6 litre and a 1.8 litre 4-cylinder engine. They were done from 1989 through to like 1997. The 1.6 litre engine would give about 114 horsepower, and the 1.8 litre engine giving 128 horsepower. Both probably don't have that horsepower anymore because of the age of them, and they just felt really slow. They came with a 5-speed manual transmission. There was an automatic transmission, but I'm going to be avoiding those. Acceleration on these cars is about 8.5, 9 seconds, and the top speed of these would be about 115 miles an hour at best, I'd reckon.
Now, my third choice is an R53 Mini Cooper S. You can definitely find these for less than £5,000, and again, it's another car that I've owned. You possibly picking up on a pattern here. Now, with this car, I owned the Mini 1. It was a 2006 Mini 1. It was an R50. Now, that had a load of modifications on it. I had coilovers not of a decent standard, so the ride was really crashing quite bad. Had some nice alloys and that kind of thing, but it wasn't made for actual driving pleasure, but it did have a very good exhaust on it. It was power flow exhaust, it sounded fantastic. So I've always wanted the Cooper S version of that car, because I got so far into modifying it, I could only get about 140, maybe 150 horsepower out of the standard one. I don't think it was even that, it was probably closer to 130. But it felt quick, handled really well, but I felt like it was really lacking. And I always wanted one with that supercharger, for that supercharger whine, and to get that bit of extra power out of it. And I think they're really quite easy to work on. I used to service mine all the time. Space is not great, but it's a small engine in there anyway. And I think parts availability, there'll be loads of those now, fairly cheap as well. And there's big communities around them. And the other thing with this is I could buy a fairly solid car for a good price and then look at modifications and even maybe look into doing some sort of track build. Now, also on this, I'm looking at something that I could do a bit of a road trip in and have a bit of fun with. So this could, again, take me across Europe, do it as a daily, is also fairly practical, and I can just have good fun with it. I think one of these, kind of spec'd out as a bit of a track car, could be fun. A couple of bucket seats in the front, kind of do a bit of a John Cooper works, the GP2 cars, whatever they are, the ones where you get the rear seats taken out, a bit of a roll bar in the back, roll cage in the back. Have it set out to have some track fun. If I could have something like that, maybe that would be a really, really good way to go.
The R53 Mini Cooper S came with a 1.6 litre supercharged inline-4 engine, approximately 165 horsepower with a 6-speed manual transmission as standard. You could also get a 5-speed automatic, but the 6-speed is what I would go for. Acceleration on these is roughly 7 to 7.5 seconds, depending on what condition it's in, with a top speed of about 135 to 140 miles an hour.
The next car on the list is the Fiat Coupe 20-valve turbo. Again, another car that I've had in the past, something that's kind of gotten away from me. I sold it when I didn't really want to. I spent quite a lot of money on the car. I had the hybrid turbo on it. I think it was running about 250 brake horsepower, something like that, with a G-Tech tune on there. Non-standard exhaust. I think it was a Scorpion exhaust on that. The handling in them is terrible. It was fine in a straight line, but as soon as you went to any corners, it was just so wide. So I would like one of these. Again, that 5-cylinder noise, that turbo whistle, these are all things that I really, really like and really miss from that car. There are a lot of known issues with these, but to be honest, when you get them sorted, it's not too bad. Some regular maintenance, cam belts, the coolant hose of death, all that kind of thing, you can make sure that those are all sorted. The main issue is making sure you haven't got a rotten one, and it's rust that I need to avoid here. And again, I think the £5,000 price tag might get me a fairly good one that's not rusty. There are specialists out there that have some imports that may just well be good enough, and again I could do some modifications to that and make quite a nice quick car, something that I could really enjoy and really go far with. I was never a big fan of the gearbox in those, but again, modifications you can do to put a bit of a short shifter in there, make that feel a bit better. It is front wheel drive and a lot of power. That's the only issue with these cars really, apart from that rust. You can make them look really cool though, they sound really cool and they go really quickly. The community for the Fiat Coupe is fantastic. The help people give is amazing, and I do still really miss the Fiat Coupe that I had.
Fiat Coupe 20-valve turbo. It came with a 2-litre inline-5 engine with a turbocharger. From factory, they came with about 220 horsepower and a 5-speed manual transmission. The acceleration on these was approximately 6.3 seconds, with a top speed of 155 miles an hour.
So the next one on the list is another one I've owned and I really kind of enjoyed, but I had some issues with. It's a BMW Z4 E85. I had the 3-litre manual. It was a great car to drive. It was fantastic fun. The convertible was really nice. The interior was really nice, to be honest. It was a great place to be. I had a bunch of issues with the coolant system. I kept having expansion tanks exploding. I had numerous issues with that car. It left me stranded a few times. And when I was getting it fixed, it was always coming back to being broken again. I picked that up really cheap a number of years ago. Bodywork was perfectly fine, but I think there was some big underlying possible head gasket issues there. I believe these cars are fairly easy to work on as well. The engine's supposed to be really reliable and there's a lot of modifications for them too, and they can be really good fun, and I really enjoy those driving experiences. And I've taken this on long trips as well. I took mine over to Europe a couple of times and I really quite enjoyed it, and it never really felt like it was going to cause me a problem. It did, but not when I went on those longer trips. I think the community around these again is probably quite good. Most BMWs are. Again, probably need to just watch out for any rust issues on these. Older BMWs tend to have this. I'm not so sure about the Z4, but I'm going to have a look. I reckon these will have good parts availabilities, as there'll be plenty of them knocking around now. Probably quite a few that have ended up being scrapped, some donor cars, that kind of thing. But I think that 3-litre, straight 6, rear-wheel drive, convertible, it's a great option.
Stats on the BMW Z4 E85. We've got the 2.5 litre or the 3 litre as viable choices here. The 2.5 litre would give you about 184 horsepower, the 3 litre giving 225 horsepower. I think there was a slightly upgraded version of the 3 litre that came with 255 horsepower as standard. They had the 5-speed manual gearbox. I believe you can get an optional 6-speed manual gearbox as well on these. They also used the Steptronic automatic transmission. I've had this on an old 330 E46. I think it's the same system. I really didn't like it, so I'm going to be looking at the manual. Acceleration on the 2.5 litre is approximately 7.5 seconds, with the 3 litre being about 5.5 to 6 seconds. Top speed on the 2.5 litre is about 137 miles an hour, and on the 3 litre is 155 miles an hour.
I'm thinking the Porsche Boxster 986, definitely high on the list, but let me know if you think that that's a terrible decision. The Mini also is high on the list for me. I really enjoyed driving the Minis. I would enjoy having one of those as a bit of a track weapon. I think that's where I would want my focus to be and actually have a bit of fun with that. I've never really done many track days, and I think this would be quite fun to do that with. So guys, let me know what you think of those 5. Let me know if there's some that should have absolutely been on the list. I know that there are tons of cars you can get for under £5,000 that would be interesting. Let me know what you've bought. Let me know what projects you've had. Let me know what you're currently working on. Again guys, if you're enjoying this channel, if you're enjoying all the content, you want to see more, make sure you like and subscribe, and let me know if you want to see any more videos like this, and follow for more.